Hey guys, I'm Laurin. I was part of the 2011 Yoga Institute group. I was actually in the same group as Kirsty, who's now your general manager there at the Yoga Institute. So I'm here to explain to you, or just to share with you, my journey after I finished my teacher training. And as you can see, no two paths seem to go the same way, as Kirsty and my path went very differently. But it's a choice, you know, you get to make it at the end of your course, and there's a lot of freedom in where you decide to go. So I'll share with you a little bit of my path so you can hopefully use it in your own way. When I finished at the Yoga Institute, a month later, I gave birth to my daughter, and at the same time I had a 15-month-old at home, so home life was quite busy. And even so, I had this desire to teach. I wanted to get out there and use my gifts and to try and just put to practice what I had learned, even though I was super nervous about doing it. I knew I had to just jump in, or else I would probably get stage fright and it'd never happen. So I was out shopping one day with my daughter, grocery shopping. She was 3 months old at the time, and it kept going over and over in my head that what Michael said about just standing in front of a gym audience is such a beautiful place to start, and to start learning how to teach in front of groups, because it's hard to get students, like if you're just starting on your own. And so that just kept playing in my head, that they need experienced teachers, that it's a really good place to start. And I thought, there's a reason this is sitting in my head. So I was doing grocery shopping at the Macquarie Center, and I put the groceries in the car. I had my daughter strapped in the baby Bjorn, and I waltzed into Fitness First, and it just asked to speak to the manager. And I didn't expect, first of all, I didn't expect him to be there. I thought I would just like leave my details and then, you know, go back out when I didn't have my daughter. And it didn't quite happen that way. He was there. They always are, FYI. And so he took me straight into his office, and all I could think was, oh God, please help her just to behave. I knew she was hungry. It was about to be nap time. I thought, she's gonna explode. I'm never gonna get a job. And luckily, she was well behaved, but he was really nice. He asked me all these questions. Had I taught before? No. What my salary expectation was, I did not know, because I've never taught. He asked, you know, my background, where I studied, all that stuff. And as he was doing the questions, he was typing it into the computer, and he was creating my profile. So he said, well, since you've never taught, I'll start you at $50 an hour, because you came from a really good teaching school. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty good, I thought at the time. And I realize now that's actually quite standard. So $50 an hour at a gym is normal. And so he told me I had to do a full induction day, and it was about an hour away from home. It was on a Saturday, completely inconvenient, but these are the things you do, I guess. So I scheduled it in, and got a babysitter, and went the next week to this long induction day. And so following that, he said I would be on the books as a cover teacher. So I got my first call the next Thursday. I do remember this very clearly. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and I got called in to teach a 7 o'clock class. The lady called. She said, I really want to go see my daughters play. I thought I'd just reach out and see if you'd be free. And I thought, just do it. You know, just get in there and just do it. This is the reason you did your training, right? So I said yes, and then I put my daughter in her little bouncy thing, and I rolled out a yoga mat for him and put him next to me, and I said, okay, you guys are my students, let me just plan this class. And so I have these beautiful memories of my son trying to do the asanas that I was doing, and I was just so grateful. They couldn't really even talk back to me. He was 18 months old at this point, and she was just staring at me. So I was like, just thank you for being buddies and a presence that I can just try and plan this class for. So I planned the class with them, and I was grateful, you know, with just them being with me. And I went off that night, and I put my microphone on. I got up on this stage, and I turned around, and there were 50 people, like just staring at me. And I was like, okay, time to teach a class. So I shoved my notes under my mat. I had my mat there, and I thought, okay, if I get confused, I'll just put them in an eyes closed position and I'll look at my notes and I'll try and come up with something new. So I thought, just slow down the breathing and start. So I did, and it went fine. And there was only one hiccup where I coughed in the microphone because I forgot I was wearing it, which is such a gift, right? You forget you're even in this environment of standing on a stage and wearing a microphone. But it was fine. Like it finished, and that was the first class under my belt, and I was just so excited to have that done. And I thought, okay, I can do this. It wasn't natural, but it was done, right? So I got a call the next week and for another cover class. So I did the same thing, you know, I covered, and then a permanent class became available. They offered me, and I did that for a while, and it was good. So in the meantime, I started just putting out there that I wanted to do something else, you know, just in my mind and my prayers that I wanted to expand. So a friend who did the Yoga Institute training with me was pregnant. She was about to give birth to her baby, and she was teaching at a studio that was about half an hour away. So she called and asked if I wanted to take over when she finished. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. So this is a great opportunity. So 2 nights a week, I would go to the studio and teach, and it was on carpet, very different from a gym. Closed setting, there might be 4 people in a class, and the rate was $60 an hour. So I had to pay $10 in tolls to get there. So it was kind of the same gym rate, and it took longer, but it was a different environment, so that was experience. So I taught there, and about a year later, the lady shut down the studio and gave me her students. So I tried to keep that going by getting a space close by for them. I knew they probably wouldn't travel to me, so yeah, just people are so used to where they go, and you know, what time they do their class, who they do it with, what studio is like, and they get very fixated. So I got as close of a space as I could to where the old studio was and tried to run these classes, and the time-wise and the money-wise that went into preparing that and trying to make it happen just didn't make sense after a while. It was a great experience. I love those people dearly, but I had to make the call that it just didn't, you know, it wasn't worth it. So I shut that down, and they gave me a beautiful singing bowl at the end, and there were tears. I felt like I really actually had such a good relationship with them, and it inspired me to see that this is what I want to do. I want close connections. I want a close environment, and this is where I want to head. I want this. So I sank that in as a prayer in my direction of where I wanted to go. And so meanwhile, I kept teaching at Fitness First, and I put my prayers out there that I want to teach local. I want to find a studio that's local and keep that studio experience going. And so a week later, I had an email from someone who found me on the Yoga Australia website, because I stayed registered with them, found me as a local teacher, and she had just opened a studio up the street. So I went and interviewed with her that following week, and she offered me a job for 1 day a week on Sundays, and it was great. It was so good. It was a great place to start, and one class led to 4 classes, and through that time of working in the studio, there were 4 different studio owners. So she, you know, they'd have it on average for about a year, and then they would pass it on, and then, you know, so on. So there came a time of, should I buy the studio? Should I take over? And the rent on it, A, was more than my mortgage, and B, just the amount of effort that would go into keeping it running was a lot. So I always decided not to. But through the studio owners, there was one that was amazing. She was so supportive. She loved her teachers. She supported her teachers. Whatever they were doing, she was just 100% into giving them what they needed to thrive. Not trying to pigeonhole them into this little box of this is how a teacher should be. It was like, what gifts do you have and how can I support you? And making it so that we felt like we mattered to her. And that was just such a gift and unusual. So in studios that I've worked in, it's more common to come across, this is what we're teaching in the studio. It has to be this way, that way. You can't say this, you can't do this. Like, it was quite, in a way, like it clipped your wings. Like, we all have such unique gifts, and we come out of this course and we teach ourselves. I mean, we're showing our heart when we teach. And so it's really quite daunting when somebody says, no, we don't want you to teach that way. So I learned quite a lot of what not to do through those owners. And one of like amazing of how just to do it right. So that she was such a blessing, and I will be with her till the day I die. So I've kept up with her. We're very close friends still. So that studio, I don't actually teach in anymore. I learned a lot. When she left, I started to kind of back away. So in the meantime, I was still teaching at Fitness First, and I was recruited. I was headhunted because my classes were growing. My reputation was quite good there, and it was people were speaking about me. It was quite a blessing. So after a class, they pulled me aside and they said, I'm opening up these studios. We want you to come teach and work for us. And so I jumped on it. I thought, what a great opportunity. So I did, and there were two ladies that were marrying up. They were combining their businesses and going under one name. They both had their own studios, but they were putting it under one name and opening up a third one under this combined name. So I was helping them open up this third one. And in that time, it was tricky because they had a lot going on. They had a lot of that they had to think about, you know, with their teachers, with their students, combining their students, like all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of running a studio can be quite intense. So they weren't, at that time, they weren't supportive of their teachers, and they would offer you, say, 2 classes, which they pay $60 per hour. So if you get a back-to-back session, that's awesome in yoga teacher land to get $120 for 2 hours work. So hang on, it's my son. Yeah. I'm in the yoga studio. I'm just doing a video. Can you give me a minute? I'm just doing a video. Can you give me 2 minutes? Thanks.
Well, meet me outside.
Okay. So, welcome to life. It's school holidays. That used to be my 18-month-old, who's now 9, and his friends are over. So, back to the story. When they were doing all this, studio opening, and I was helping them, and they would offer these 2 classes back to back. And so I would resign from, say, my Fitness First class, which takes 4 weeks notice. And then I would get these 2 classes that were back to back and amazing. And then it was within the first week of the studio opening, they'd be like, oh my gosh, only 3 people came, which is normal when a studio is opening. So they would say, okay, we're not gonna do those classes anymore. We'll take them back and we'll let you know if more become available. And I'm like, because then you'd resign from one job and you couldn't get it back. And it was tricky because you had to make some pretty hard calls at the time. So, and I found as I was going through it, especially with 2 studio owners, one would say, we want you to talk more in the start of a class, more philosophy and all this. And then I would do that. And the next studio owner would be in the class and be like, no, you talk too much at the start, we want less. So I was like, okay. So it was it's tricky because you're trying to appeal to quite very specific ideas that 2 people have. So that was probably my trickiest, and so I eventually just started to back away from that as well. And I was really lucky because our house, we had this room that needed to be redone. It was our garage, and my husband had this amazing idea, as he does, to make it into a yoga studio as a personal practice because it was a single car garage. And so I thought, that is amazing, let's do that. And so I just let him run with it. And he was like, you're gonna have your studio, it's gonna be 6 weeks, I'm gonna get it up and going. So a year and a half later, I finally got my studio. And so it was supposed to be like a one-on-one type thing because it was quite small, but this is it. And it has been the biggest gift, and I have to tell you, it's thriving. I'm really lucky. And I live on a main road, so most of my students walk here. I have signage galore out the front of my house. That's how a lot of people found it. I charge $22 for a casual class if they pay cash, and $24 if there's a credit card fee. $190 for 10 class passes, $195 for credit card fees. I charge around $90 to $100 for a private lesson, less if they do it in packages, so $90 if they do it in packages. And there's no overhead, so it's easier, and I mean, obviously it makes more sense in that way. And I don't teach at the gym anymore, and I don't teach at any other studios. And I have what I need here because people have found me and they tend to stick. So when they come, I have a really good retention rate. But it took me, gosh, how long have I had the studio? Probably five years now. It took a while to get it to the point where it is now, where I run 13 classes a week, and I can only take 6 people in a class. So it's very intimate. It's that intimate setting that was, kind of seeded at the start of this journey. And I'll show you what it looks like. So it's very small. Those are all my bolsters and props that go into the back room there. That's the bathroom, and that's the outside. So it just opens up, and you can fit. I sit basically where I'm talking to you, and you can fit 6 mats along there. And because of its size, one of the gifts about it is that everyone seems to know everyone now. So it's this community that has got this beautiful feel behind it. And my students have become my friends. And when I started sharing with them things like how I even found yoga, because one of the girls last fall kept crying through the class, and she's like, what is wrong with me? Why do I keep crying? And I said, it's autumn, like it's the time of shedding and letting go. And it reminded me, that's how I found yoga. I cried my way through my first few classes. And I thought, why not share that with them? Why not share with them how I came into it, and that is such a normal way to be. And so I did. I wrote out a newsletter, and I typed, all these things from my heart of how I came across yoga and my own journey with it. And my gosh, our connections just went, poof. And it was like I just had this stronger sense of community when they started feeling me, and we started walking together in our yoga path. Because of the size of this, we can do that. So I was really lucky. So now I've got them, I've got their teens, I've got their kids, I've got their husbands. I help support their local businesses. We run yoga markets here where I sell my tights, which you would come across the Liquido tights at the front there. And if they do artsy stuff, like one of my students makes this amazing jewelry, and so we do markets where we promote her art. And another one is a photographer, so he takes bucket loads of photos of me, and I put them all over the website and everywhere else, promoting him and trying to get him business through that. I work with his daughter, and I work with a lot of husbands that come that have never done yoga before, that their wives trust them to me to help them on this journey and this path. And it's just been such a gift in that way. So I have to say, this many years down, I'm so happy with where things are, and I'm deeply grateful. And you can see how the journey has happened to make it land where it is. And yeah, it's ever growing, but you find your own way with it. And so I hope this has at least given you something to work with, even just how much studios and gyms and places like that pay, and what the environment can be like working with them. And to know that you have such a unique gift and talent, and that two people can come out of the Yoga Institute and teach completely differently, because you're sharing your heart, and the world needs it. The world needs this. They need you. So go be you, go be fantastic. And then as time goes on and as experiences happen, you'll know where your gift needs to sit. It doesn't have to sit exactly where somebody else's does, because that's where you think it should. You can pick and choose with time, and anchor your prayers, anchor of what speaks to you, and where you want to channel your energy, because it's precious. So thank you for listening to me. I shall go outside and deal with the kids now. I wish you well, and I'm here if you need anything. My website is Bend It Like Buddha. It's bendityoga.com.au. My studio is called Bend It Like Buddha. So all the best. I'll hopefully see you on the other side. Bye.